Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. I'm Kirsty and this is Stuck in the Mud. So today guys, I wanted to talk to you about how to resist compulsions. And with obsessive compulsive disorder, the compulsive element is really important because the more we give in to those compulsions, the bigger and stronger OCD gets and the bigger grip it has on you, the hold it has over your life and your ability to function normally. Now, for me, it was a massive hurdle to overcome because I had so many compulsions I was even doing when I didn't even realise it. Some of them had become habitual, but I didn't really understand how much that was influencing the OCD cycle and how it was actually detrimental to actually healing and getting better from OCD. And it took some time to actually build my awareness to when I was actually giving into those quite subtle compulsions that came over me when I had an obsession or an intrusive thought, and it can be so subtle and we can sometimes give into that without really much thought, and it's that instant kind of feel good feeling we're after. We just want some comfort, some release from OCD and how horrible it makes you feel. It's just the most uncomfortable feeling. People really don't understand how it can control your life and how you can be in the grips of it and almost not see it yourself. And that's where I'd been for a lot of my life. My whole life was consumed by OCD and I didn't even realize it sometimes because it just became the kind of normal way I behaved about things. I'd get an uncomfortable, intrusive thought and I would repeat an action. I would ruminate over it. I would pull it apart, just trying to come to some kind of certainty and conclusion. And it never came. As soon as you might feel better after you've completed a compulsion or, some kind of ritual, and it doesn't last. You might feel at ease for some time and it will kind of, numb down those feelings of anxiety and guilt and shame and all those kind of uncomfortable feelings. But it comes back because it's just bubbling under, it's building, it's getting bigger because we're saying, hey, this is important. I need to react to this because, something bad could happen, something terrible, could unfold if I don't actually complete this compulsion, whether that's physical or mental, because compulsions with OCD can be that way. They can be purely mental, where you're ruminating over things, and that is a compulsive behaviour. And it was for me for many years. And I think that's where I kind of came unstuck because I thought, well, I'm not actually carrying out a physical ritual, but it became so much more mental as I grew older. And I think that's the same for a lot of people. They don't actually realise that that's compulsive behaviour. So once I became aware of that and I realised I was pulling everything apart, trying to figure everything out, trying to work every thought I had out. And I did have some subtle physical rituals that I think were habitual in the end. And I would do things like I'd have to put my clothing on in a certain order when I was getting ready, or there was a certain way that I would blow dry my hair and it had to be done in a certain system, in a certain order. And I feel that those were comfort things for me, although they weren't particularly really stressful and it didn't go on for a long period of time, because back in the day when I was doing compulsions and rituals, there were physical ordering and counting rituals, physical things, and they could take me ages, hours. You could be doing the same thing over and over again until it just felt right. And you think just one more time and I just don't feel right. It just doesn't feel right yet, until you'll carry on and carry on and carry on doing a compulsion till it feels right. And it's so sad and so debilitating because that time never really comes. You might in the end think, right, okay, one last time. You do that last time and you might have a small bit of relief, but it's just making it all bigger because we're actually signalling to our brain that this is important. And this, we know we're on high alert. We need to do this to make everything safe, protect ourselves or protect our family or whoever. You know, it's just a comfort thing we do, and we carry on doing it because we think it's important and we need to do it. And it's the drive to do it is, you know, it's crazy. We just have to do it, even though we can think this is irrational behavior. We know ourselves it's irrational, but we're so compelled to do it. That compulsion to do it is just intense. And, you know, I know a lot of you out there will agree with me. It's just, it overtakes you and it overrides you, and you just have to complete it. But when I had to get to grips with this side of my behavior with OCD, I really had to approach it differently. And this is what I would say to everyone out there that's going through this. The way we respond to those urges to actually carry out a compulsion, whether it's mental or physical, is really important, because when we try and stop them, when we kind of react to them in, oh my gosh, not another one, not another urge to do a compulsion, you know, we're actually signaling to our brain, you know, we're in a state of high emergency. You know, we're like, this needs to be dealt with. And our brain is like on high alert. You know, it's just the way our brain works. And it'll be like, this is important. I need to take note of this. So it just grows exponentially bigger. And it carries on growing and growing and growing the more we react in that way. And the same with when we try and distract ourselves, you know, when we think, oh, I need to disregard that thought completely. When it comes in my head, I'm going to disregard it. I'm not going to pay attention to it. And but we're still in a state of high emergency when we respond like that. And that is so important to note, because we are actually doing the opposite. We think we're doing something positive for our OCD, but we're not. If we're trying to distract ourselves, it's very different from what I'm about to describe. And I so wish that everybody could really get to grips with this. And it does take time, to be kind to yourselves. It's so important to find that self-compassion when you're healing from OCD and anxiety, because it's a tough place to be. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. And I know how hard it is to just change those ways we react to OCD thoughts and compulsions. And it's very subtle. And the way we do that is when we get an urge to carry out a compulsion. Maybe we've had an intrusive thought. We're obsessing over something, and we get that urge to carry out a ritual. And the way we resist them is this. We respond passively to that intrusive thought. We respond to that urge to carry out that compulsion passively. And this is how we do it. We roll our eyes like I just did and be like, whatever, OCD, it's fine. I know you're just trying to trip me up and pull me back in, but I'm not doing it today. Sorry. And it's just a really passive way. The more passive, the better. You know, be quite blasé about it. Like, oh, here we are again. Okay, I'm not doing it. I'm sorry. You can try and pull me in all you like, but no, not today. It's just a very passive way of doing it. And the way we're signaling to our brain when we do that, we're not in a place of high alert. It's such a, you know, the more passive, the better. Just like, yeah, whatever. It doesn't have to be long, just a quick kind of like passive way we respond to that intrusive thought or urge to carry out the compulsion. And it just takes some practice, because at first you might feel like you're waiting for those intrusions, you know, and because you're getting so many of them, it can feel frustrating. And just be, like I say, be kind to yourself when you're feeling like that, because none of this is easy. You know, it's taken me a long time to get to this point, but I really want to make people see and realize from these videos that it is possible. And, you know, healing from OCD is possible, even though in those times when you can be in a really bad place and it can feel so intense and overwhelming. I just want you to realize that there is hope, and you can do this. If I can do this, you can do this. And I would say practice that. Practice responding to your OCD in a passive way, in a blasé way, just really like nonchalant way, just whatever, not today. I know you're trying to hook me in, but it's not happening. You can do what you want and then move your focus to move on with your day. And that's not distracting yourself. Distracting yourself is very different when we're avoiding it. It's very subtle. Like I say, it doesn't feel, it can sound very similar when we say distract yourself or, move your focus, just move on with your day. It can sound very similar, but it's actually very different, because when we're distracting ourselves, we're kind of saying we mustn't think about this. We can't do that. And it's letting it be there. It's very, very subtle. So when we're actually letting thoughts be there, we're just moving our focus and moving on with our day. That's not distracting ourselves from our thoughts, because that's just basically saying, I can't think about this. I must do something else to take my mind off it. That's not sending the right message. We're just moving our focus and saying that this isn't important. Our brain is actually realizing that this needn't take up our time. This is not important. This intrusive thought, this discomfort we feel in our body when we feel that anxiety, and maybe in the pit of your stomach you feel the sensation of guilt about not doing it, because that will be a thing as well. You'll feel that feeling of, I should really do this because I'm going to feel better, and you resisting yourself from that, just letting it be there, is going to feel, you're going to feel quite a lot of discomfort at first, and that's normal. That's part of getting better, is sitting with that discomfort and letting it be there. And it's very subtle. Like I say, we're not pushing anything out. We're not trying to stop anything. We're letting it coexist with us. And I like to use the word coexist, because to kind of get your head around the fact that we're letting it be there. And the more we can do that consistently, that you'll notice it. You will feel it in yourself. You'll feel the fact that you're not getting as many intrusive thoughts, that there'll be less in frequency. You'll probably notice as well that you're not feeling as much anxiety and not much, you're not feeling that discomfort as much in the pit of your stomach, when we're not actually giving into the compulsions and, carrying out a ritual. You'll start to notice that reduced in frequency as well. And that just means you're taking those steps forward. We're telling OCD that it's not going to be our boss, and it's not going to push us around anymore and control our lives. And when we're making those little steps forward each day, and we're turning our back on OCD, it's there doing its thing and it's trying to hook us in, but we're just moving forward with our day. And those are amazing leaps forward to make in our recovery, because we're teaching our brain that we don't need to give it our time and attention. It's OCD and it's just trying to reel us in. So I hope these tips I've given you today give you some idea of where to start with your compulsive behaviour. And keep trying it. It's fine if you take a step back. You'll find yourself getting involved in it. I did for a long time. I'd say I'd probably into the years for me. It took a while to kind of really get my head around this. And like I said, it's been a 40-year journey for me. And I'm not saying that's going to be your experience. That was my experience. I've lived in a time when OCD wasn't really talked about, and I wasn't really doing the work. And I'll be honest with that. I wasn't consistently doing the work. And I think, if I could talk to myself like 10 years ago when I was in a really bad place, and give me this advice I have now, I think things would be different. And I didn't have the right help back then, but there is the right help out there to get better from this and heal. And I know you can do it. So let me know in the comments how you're getting on with this. Let me know your experiences. I'd love to hear and find out, how you're finding all this, how you're finding these compulsions, how you actually respond to them, because that is a really key part in actually breaking the OCD cycle. So thanks for watching today, and I will see you in the next video.